Hello and welcome to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to success. And I'm thrilled to have with me today, Jeremey Donovan, the SVP of Sales Strategy for one of the fastest growing SaaS companies in the world, SalesLoft. SalesLoft is the leading sales engagement platform, helping sales companies bring customers a better sales experience. Jeremey is also the author of 5 sales and public speaking books, his most recent being Leading Sales Development, The Art and Science of Building Exceptional Teams. Jeremey, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm thrilled to be on. I also love the energy. You're going to actually pump me up a little bit. I'm usually a pretty subdued person, so I'm going to have to crank it up a little for your show.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, we're thrilled to have you. And I've been a big fan, following you for a while. And it's just been amazing to see the sales success of SalesLoft. I remember when Kyle Porter started with 5 employees, Tim and the other guy, and then to see it scale where it is now, it's absolutely amazing. And yeah, I know you've had a big role in that and have a lot of secrets along the way. But for the audience that doesn't know who you are, can you take a few minutes just to share a little bit about the places that you've sold for and your background?
Yeah, I will say that everyone's their own special snowflake, so I'm my own special snowflake as well. I think of myself a little bit as a sales fraud sometimes because I began my career as an engineer, actually a semiconductor engineer out in Silicon Valley. And then I worked for 16 years for Gartner in all kinds of roles in product, marketing. I was an analyst, operations, strategy, you name it. And then it was only after all that time that I actually found my way into sales. And sales, I was actually probably a CRO before I was anything else. So I found my happy place now in sales strategy and operations. And if as I look through that, Gartner price points kind of range from $30K minimum up to millions of dollars for the customer relationships, and most of the companies I've worked for subsequently are kind of SaaS companies, typical price points, I think also in like that 30 to 50K sweet spot, but then going up into the millions as well.
Yeah, you were saying like these price points are typically like higher ticket.
Yeah, they're higher ticket. Like I have not worked for the heavily transactional. I have not worked for any heavily transactional businesses where you're talking about hundreds, if not, $1,000, $2,000. I do a podcast of my own, and we've occasionally had people who are in those transactional businesses, and I just love to learn from them about how it's different. And I think a lot about sales forecasting, and forecasting in those hyper transactional businesses kind of blows my mind because you're really a demand. You're sort of a demand taker there, but it's so much more reliant on SEO, SEM, traffic generation, right? Like you're very marketing forward, even more marketing forward in those companies, because without that inbound funnel in those transactional businesses, you're just not going to survive.
Yeah. It's crazy. I had to do the same thing with starting Seamless. I was so used to high ticket Google and IBM, and they're just so wildly different. So it'll be interesting. And then when you were doing engineering out in Silicon Valley, was that for like SaaS companies or what type of company?
No, I was, my background is actually semiconductor physics. So I worked for a semiconductor company called Xilinx that was recently acquired, after, many, many decades actually by one of the big guys. I think they got bought by Intel. Intel or AMD, one of the two of them. So no, I was like testing semiconductor devices, and I was doing a bit of coding, but it was not. I wouldn't call it. I code a lot, which might be a topic of conversation today. Even in my role, it's one of my. I call it my secret superpower because it makes me just more efficient in every job I've ever done. But I've never written a line of production code for a SaaS company, right? Like the stuff that I write is usually things that I or a small group of people would run. There's a little bit of exceptions that lately I've been creating just fun free tools, single page websites.
What was it? The email subject line grader or something? Was that you?
Yeah, we got 2 of them out there. So one is subjectlinegrader.com. So that you just put in a subject line and it will use data science to figure out what the reply rate is for that subject line. And then another one that it looks really basic. The UI is quite basic, but it's find-business-email.com, and that one, it does what it says. It finds business email. You put a first name, last name, and domain, and it uses a bunch of APIs to find an email address. So yeah, that's been fun to code those things.
And what's your stack when you're coding?
It's those things are pretty basic. They're just PHP, some JavaScript. That's the main, and HTML, right? The sort of main basic web stuff. I've been taking advantage of this extra time that I'm not commuting into New York to just do other things. Plus, my kids are getting older, so I've been taking some classes in Python and in R, which is a statistical programming language.
Yeah, for data science, right?
Exactly. So I want to be able to be a full-fledged data scientist and not just an armchair data scientist.
That's awesome. So where do you let's dive into where you sell now, and then we could uncover some of those sales secrets you've got. But where do you sell now? And then what is, the average ticket size, the average sales cycle, you name it?
Yeah. So SalesLoft, right, sells a sales engagement platform. We're selling to, originally it was mostly other SaaS companies. It's definitely broadened out significantly from the original days. And then I think things have also changed. I think in the original days, it was lower price points. SalesLoft, before we had the sort of core platform that we had right now, way back when I was a customer, SalesLoft had this prospector solution.
Yeah, prospector, I remember.
Yeah. I'm not. That's like OG days. I'm not OG by any means. But now, we have 4 segments. So we go from we call it emerging, which some people might call micro, and that is companies that are under 100 employees, and then we've got it. And then we work our way up. So SMB for us, we then go to mid-market. SMB is 100 employees to about 750 employees. Mid-market for us is 750 employees to 2,000 employees, and then enterprise is 2,000 and above. So, the customers we publicly talk about that are, kind of big customers go on up to, BMS like IBM. So it's really small companies all the way up to the biggest ones in the world.
And then do you guys have, the average ticket price, or do you guys, what's the average price point? And then do you have a minimum that you sell?
There is a minimum. It was like $8,000 minimum. I think there are some exceptions to that these days, just as we're trying to help, some of those emerging companies get up and running with the platform.
Or 10 seats, or how much would that be?
The 8K, I want to say it's like 5 seats or something like that. I don't know the exact number. I should, but that's the thing is worth stating that I'm not like a salesperson, so I'm not current on our pricing and packaging. I'm a sales strategy and operations person.
Yep.
So I'm a little bit more in the bowels, I guess, if you will, of the organization, thinking about territory and forecasting and so forth.
That's great. And then what would you say the average, this is probably going to depend on the different segments, but what would you say the average sales cycle is for this type of deal?
Yeah, it varies. It totally varies by segment. Like, in that micro, take the emerging segment, right? There's a lot of inbound, and those can be transactional. Those are like 2-week sales cycles. And then if you're talking about the very, very large enterprises, 6 months, sometimes a year and a half. Like it takes, if you're whale hunting, it takes a long time to do that right.
That's amazing. Okay, great. Well, let's dive in now that the audience, everyone, so you've got an idea of what do we sell, what's the price point? So a few $100s per seat per month, 8,000 minimum average deal size. When it comes to sales secrets, based on everything that you've learned from selling at SalesLoft to what you did at Gartner and CB Insights and your whole career, Jeremey, what would you say your top 3 sales secrets are?
Yeah, it's a great. I guess it varies based on different things. So maybe I'll start with talking about just the use of data, because I found it very interesting in the past. It's been the past few years. I think there's been an erosion in the trust of data in general, I don't know whether it's like manipulation of data, or maybe it all started with, the presidential polling 4 years ago, and then even the presidential polling this past election season, that just, I think, lowered people's trust in the accuracy of data. Though,
that's actually a great point, right?
Yeah, it really makes me sad, actually. I was having a conversation with my wife the other day, who's generally like as data driven as I am, and she too was starting to mistrust data. So, I have I think you need a healthy skepticism, sure, but I would rather have data than not have data. So the people out there who say that, for example, in the world of sales statistics, that all this, the data is useless and my response back to them is I'd rather use data. So here's a good example, even from something recently. So what about the word imagine? To use the word imagine in a email or a call. So we ran recently 5 million emails through and checked for the use of the word imagine. And we found that if you use the word imagine, I think it decreases the reply rate by about 40%. So that was, it was a little surprising because
the calendar was filled with back-to-back appointments. Imagine if you hit quota every year, that would decrease reply rates by 40%.
Exactly. And I think you could explain this, that I think it comes off as very salesy in an email, right? And hyperbolic and not genuine. In contrast, right? So there's a conversation intelligence company out there who ran, I think, 500,000 call transcripts through and found that Imagine is effective. And I buy that too. Like, I think that the context really matters on where you apply these things. And the reason I buy it in the call places is I guess a little pun intended, but imagine that I'm a prospect and you're the salesperson and you're talking to me about the value of your solution, and there's something I don't understand. Then you could introduce an analogy to me, like imagine that, so you're using imagine as a response to me and using that to front an analogy. I think that to me definitely resonates. So, this overarching sales success secret number one is like when all these other people are zigging by denying the value of data, my secret for you is, go be the zagger who actually embraces the data and uses that. And I think you'll leave the other people on the dust. And there's so much good data being, you can either produce your own, or you can go out there and find tons and tons of people who are sharing like good data on what's working in calls, what's working in emails, what's working on social. So just go find that stuff and leverage it.
And the great news is now more than ever, there's data everywhere. I forget the quote. It's like something, all data rules all, or like, I don't care about your opinion. I just care about like data.
And data I trust. Yeah.
Yeah. Data I trust. Everything else. I'm with you, man. Like if you've got information that you can use to make a better informed decision, why wouldn't you want to collect it all, analyze it all, and then use that to try to increase your success rate? I'm 1,000% with you. Crazy that you're seeing. And by the way, audience tuning into the podcast, Jeremy posts on LinkedIn all these really cool LinkedIn posts about the tests that he's running at SalesLoft. So the Imagine thing. What are some of the other like ones that went super viral, Jeremy? What are some others you recently posted?
The very first one to go viral was actually how you should reference the person in the salutation. So should you just use Brandon, or should you use hey Brandon, or hi Brandon, or hello Brandon? And it turned out that hey was the most effective. So that one was like the first one. This is probably a couple years ago. There's like they're constantly evolving, and I also think this is an important point, which is probably have to retest hey, for example, because at some point it becomes common. I think one of the reasons these things work is that they are pattern interrupts, and once they become familiar, like Imagine probably worked in emails before, but once they become familiar, they don't work. There are other things though that I think are more rooted in kind of human psychology.
Like with the breakup email, I remember SalesLoft started like one of the breakup emails with a hippopotamus and being chased by hippos or whatever, and then everyone copied it and it works, but then everyone copies it.
Then it stops.
Yeah.
What is working in breakup emails? This actually went viral in the past week. Viral was the question still relevant. So if you put still relevant as your breakup email text, that actually, I think it was 241% higher response rate than the average email. So still relevant is super duper effective right now in breakup emails. The other one, I was starting to say that there are things that go out of style, but there are some things that quote unquote stay in style. A great example of that is subject line length. So you want to keep your subject line length down to one, maybe 2 words. And that surprised a lot of people. And then I'm often asked, what's the magic word or words? And oftentimes the magic word or words is just your company name. So even if and then they ask, what if my company is not well known? It doesn't matter. In fact, that might even be better, because then people are like, who is XYZ company? So the one word subject line is another kind of killer tip.
That's awesome. Great. Okay. So that was one secret that then drilled into a few other secrets, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And this is like, if you lost it all, how to start all over again. So that was a great secret, leverage data to maximize sales. What would you say your next big secret is from everything you've learned in sales, if you wanted to go from 0 to 100 million insanely fast?
Yeah. I'm going to go back to basics on this one, which is and I'll cite Jason Jordan and Michelle Vizena, who wrote this great book called Cracking the Sales Management Code.
Yeah, so they're in Sales Secrets. Jason's awesome.
Yeah, they're both awesome. So the thing they talk about there is a sort of 3-level way of thinking about how you manage. If you're a salesperson, right, you're the CEO of your own business, or if you're a sales leader, right, you're the CEO of whatever segment you're leading. So the thing that they have in there is basically activity, objectives, and results. So I would just like manage my life as a salesperson on not my full life, but my sales life with that kind of framework. So let's take an SDR, right? Like, how does that apply to an SDR or an AE or whatever? In the case of an SDR, the activity is like, I'm going to do 50 dials a day, period. Whether I can hit my number at 30 calls or 35, I'm going to do 50 a day, no matter what, day in, day out. And right, is if you don't keep the input, like your foot on the gas on the input, then you're going to pay the price down the road on the output. So I think the first thing is like in that cracking the sales management, or even just cracking the sales code, is to keep your foot on the gas on activity every day. And one thing I learned as I was running a sales development team was like, I wanted people to do 50 calls a day, but I set a weekly target of 250 for the 5 days. And what I found was people would get to Thursday or Friday afternoon and they'd only be at 100 or 150, and there was just no way for them to make it up. So I don't, I want to empower people to just do their own thing, but it's you do kind of have to keep after yourself as an individual salesperson and set those goals for yourself. Or as a sales leader, you really just need to check in and help to make sure that your people are actually doing what they need to be successful in their job. And then I have one modification to the middle. Yeah.
Are you managing that to the day then versus the week?
The day, yeah. Manage to the day.
I love that approach. Now, a lot of people like that because they feel like, oh, it's micromanagerial, but how are you going to hit an annual target if you're not managing it by the day?
Yeah. Every day, like even for me now, right? Like I'm not selling, but I still I have to get stuff done. And so every single night I send to my boss, like some of our teams have regular stand-ups. The team I'm on currently, we don't have regular stand-ups, but I still hold myself accountable on a daily basis. So every single night I send my boss an email that says, basically, here's what I did today and here's what I plan to do tomorrow.
That's awesome.
And I don't know. Yeah.
Kyle, or who do you send it to?
It's Kyle. Yeah. I sent it to Kyle. He does read and respond to them. He pretty much reads and responds to everything. But even if he didn't, I would still do it, because my putting that down is a way of, it's really two things. One is I do it every night. So I plan what I'm going to do the next day, which makes the next day a lot less stressful for me. But then it's a way of holding myself accountable. And I don't necessarily always get all the things done but I do, I try to. So that activity, holding yourself accountable to activity. I did want to comment on the middle part also, which is Jason and Michelle talk about objectives. For me, it's actually an efficiency metric. So we were talking about SDRs. In that world, the efficiency metric is basically how many activities does it take to get an op? And I think that's like your, I'm not a sports person. It's like sports ball to me, but what is it? Batting average. There we go. I'll use that. It took me a while to even think of that. So that's like your batting average. And what you want to do is you want to improve that over time. And it's one you actually want to get lower, right? Is if it takes you 200 activities per op, you want to work your way down to 100 activities per op. And obviously it's not 100 touches to one person, but you kind of get the gist of it. Is like, don't just manage your activity, also manage your effectiveness. Those two things are super important.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that. Or, well, I'll reverse it just so we've got a good nomenclature: objective, activity, results, or activity, objective, results. You measure it daily and measure the effectiveness to hit the results. So that way, I assume you could improve your conversion rates.
Yeah, right. And then you use all the, then you learn from other people, right? And listen to your own call recordings, right? Play the tape back in your mind or in real life. Now you can listen to all these call recordings and diagnose what you're doing.
That's awesome. And then this last one around the third secret, I'd love to hear, because SalesLoft has grown insanely fast. If you had to dial it in, and I don't know what revenue point you joined, but looking at going from 7 figures in sales, which is probably 2014, 2015 for SalesLoft, to where they're at now, the 50 to 100 million mark, right? I don't know where you're at, 50, 60, 70 million.
North of that, yeah.
Yeah, to getting to 100 million and hopefully a massive IPO or whatever it may be. What is the biggest secret? If you had to drill down to one thing that helped skyrocket SalesLoft's growth based on everything that you've seen and observed, what do you think it would be?
This is going to come off as, I don't want this to come off as like salesy at all, but I can answer this because I was a customer of SalesLoft's at multiple companies before I joined the company. In fact, I've left a trail of like SalesLoft instances in the companies that I worked for, and it truly is it's the same thing Jeff Bezos says, right? Like, we are customer first, and I experienced this at every place I went to. Is like whenever I had a problem, I called my CSM, chatted, Slacked, whatever means of communication, and they like hopped on it and fixed it, right? And that truly is, I think, is the differentiator, is the focus on the customers. It sounds very marketing-y, but referring to another book, there's another good book. I think it was Lee Salt's, maybe, Sales Differentiation, and they talk about like 4 levels of differentiation.
Yeah, he's in the book too, which is awesome. He's great.
Yeah, his stuff is awesome. So it's like, I'm trying to remember it exactly, but it's kind of like features become non-differentiating, right? We have competitors, and the competitors have great features too. And we have the same features basically, although they'll spin it one way one month, we'll spin it one way another.
Yeah, like similar features, different UI UX.
Yeah,
you've got features that they don't have. They've got features that you don't have. Like it's very similar though. Like if anyone's looking at it, just like we're in the lead space.
We've talked to prospects and asked them like, what do you see as the difference? And they tell us like, your color is different than the color of your experience is different than the color of their experience. Like sometimes it comes down, obviously there's more differentiation in the platforms than that. But at the end of the day, right, without going, you guys can read Lee's awesome book or read it in Confidential Sales Secrets. But at the end of the day, it really does come down to, how are you helping to make sure that your customers are meeting their business objectives? And we're maniacally focused on that goal, which informs our product strategy, which informs our, data science sharing strategy. Like all things, just as they do at Amazon, sort of come from that base.
Maniacal, like all customer.
And but like to relate this to individual salespeople, right? Is like, yes, as a company, that's our philosophy, but a company is not. a company is not like the end unto itself. It's the actual people in the company. So it means it has to come down to everyone. So, let's take the stuff we were talking about earlier, the subject line grader. So as people register for the subject line grader, we've got our marketing automation stuff going. So it triggers an email from me to them. I got an email last night back from a customer who used the subject line grader and said, hey, like we're having trouble with XYZ. So at 10 p.m. when they send that to me, I route that over to, their CSM, their account executive to like jump on it. And it's not that we're working necessarily, I'm a bit of a workaholic, but it's not that we're working 24/7, but it's like, no matter what channel something comes in, you never say it's not my job. Like it is absolutely my job to make sure that things are right for that customer. And I think that's the salespeople who take care of their customers in that way are the ones who will win.
That's amazing. Wow. That's so good. Jeremey Donovan, I love it. Oh, so this last segment, rapid fire questions, and just like whatever comes to your mind, we've just got 5 or 6 of these, and then we'll wrap up where the audience can follow you. So what is your favorite habit?
Archery.
Archery, like arrows?
Yeah, like arrows, because it's meditative for me.
Awesome. Where do you go? Hold on. Are you outside of New York? Where do you go to do?
I am outside of New York, although there are ranges in New York. I live in North Jersey, and there are a few indoor ranges here that I can go. I can go shoot my arrows.
Love that. What's your favorite book?
Oh, I read like a book a week, if not more. I read constantly, so I'd have to go by genre. But my favorite book is fiction, is Anna Karenina, and we could spend a whole episode on why that's my favorite book there. My favorite sales. What's that?
Do you read in the morning or at night?
I read constant. I read like not so much in the morning. I read more at night, but I read constantly. So anytime I'm not working or doing stuff with the family or playing with my cats, I am reading. I don't watch I don't actually secret superpower. I don't watch television.
I love that. And okay, you were about to say your favorite sales book. Go for it.
Yeah, my favorite sales book. That's really, really tough. There's so many good ones. So some of the ones I've already cited, Cracking the Sales Management Code, Sales Manager Survival Guide, New Solution Selling, like Spin Selling, some of the original books. There's so many. You can always learn something, and that's my goal, is like learn one thing from each book.
Yeah, I love that. You're like looking for the secrets.
Yes, I'm looking for the secrets.
Well, luckily you're now in this book, and you're gonna get your secrets in here. Okay, how do you stay motivated?
There was this Harvard study years ago that cited basically task completion as like one of the keys to happiness. So I don't require a ton. I really it's really task completion for me. And I think the other thing is karma, basically, is that I feel like I trade in karma. So I love doing things for people, and the only thing I ever ask in return is that they pay it forward to someone else. So that's part of my motivation as well.
That's awesome. How do you get unstuck? Especially with like COVID, the recession, the election, you name it, whatever may cause you ever getting stuck. What do you do to get unstuck?
Probably it's something between like exercise, when I'm not a big fitness person, but just go out and take a walk. I think that's probably my biggest thing. So especially with COVID, right, as pre-COVID, if you're a New York City commuter, right, like you're walking all day, you're walking to the bus, to the train, to lunch, to whatever, you're just walking constantly. So when COVID came on, I just made a commitment to taking an hour and a half to 2 hour walk every day. So I usually do that in the morning or the evening.
Wow, that's amazing. And then last one, what's your biggest challenge that you're facing right now? What's the biggest challenge you're trying to solve?
Yeah, deep in some ways, it's like a deep work question, which is throughout the course of my career, I've been an individual contributor. I've managed hundreds of people in other jobs, so I think the biggest thing for me is like a soul searching I'm doing right now, which is as I get older and my career begins I have less left in my career than I had years up till now. It's how do I want this last chapter to go? Like, do I want to do more high value individual contributor work, or do I want to lead teams? And there is an efficient frontier there that I'm exploring. So I don't know the answer yet, and that is definitely the subject of some of my long walks.
I love that, man. Well, I'm sure you're going to figure it out and find it, or you'll leverage all this data and engineer to tell you. Jeremey Donovan, thank you so much for joining us for Sales Secrets, sharing all of your secrets to success. Where can the audience follow you, learn from you, connect with you for more?
I'm all LinkedIn all the way. So yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn. I connect with pretty much everybody who seems to be a human being. Love connecting with salespeople.
That's awesome. Well, hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Sales Secrets. The world's best salespeople share their secrets to success. You can get a copy of the book on Amazon, and you could listen to the episodes on iTunes, Spotify, podcast, SoundCloud, you name it. Tune into episodes every Monday and Thursday. And thank you, Jeremey, so much. Go follow Jeremey. He posts amazing content. It feels like every day on LinkedIn. And everyone tuning in, thank you so much. Best of luck. Go out there, go make it happen, go all in, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.